Thank you
How are
so
you?
much for joining. I know it's you're in Australia, so it's a
Indeed.
14-hour difference. So thank you so much for
Well,
joining.
I'm coming to you from the future, Joy.
Oh
Australia
yeah.
on the timeline. It's Tuesday morning here. Palestine is free. All of our work has
Awesome.
been
Yes.
rewarded.
Yes.
Um, so thank you so much for hosting me and for all of the guests. I've watched a few of the guests before, which is it's just fantastic lineup. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey Matt, can you play Nasir's video I put in? Just to introduce you guys. This is why I reached out. I really love this.
And this is a shout out to our Zionists that are here because they're watching everything we do. Come up close. We know you're here. Take a good picture. You need to know, Zionists, that you are not free. There is no freedom when you're an oppressor. There is no freedom when you're an occupier. There is no freedom when your perception of freedom equals killing, equals oppression, equals genocide. But you are trapped. We might be occupied and you might be standing on our heads, but you're stuck here too. Your language of hate is not our language. Ours is a language of love and belonging, and it's true of every single Indigenous people who get their strength from the land, who get their strength from their ancestors, who get their strength from history and connection for millennia. Land you bomb is not land you own. Land you commit an ecocide on is not land you love. Indigenous language is love, it's embrace, it's belonging. Get your foot off our heads, and unlike our language of love, we will embrace you. You'll have to say sorry, like a really big sorry, but you will say sorry, and justice will be on our terms. And today, you cannot find a South African who was against apartheid. You can't find it. Every one of them, it was pro Nelson Mandela. I mean, how did apartheid exist with all of these against apartheid white South Africans who managed to come to Australia for some reason, you know? They all left after Nelson Mandela got out of jail. Know this, Zionists, you might be taking our picture today and selectively choosing quotes that you want to report in rags like the Australian. We've got the receipts. We're not going to let you forget. We're not going to let you forget. Palestine is going to be free from the river to the sea. You can colonize our land. You will not colonize our words. From the river to the sea. Palestine. From the river to the sea. Palestine.
That gave me goosebumps. I was like, I have to reach out to him. So thank you so much for joining. First, introduce yourself, please, to those who may not be familiar.
Yeah, thanks, Joy. My name is Nasser, like the space shuttle, but named after the president of Egypt, Nasser Mashni. I'm the current president of the Australia-Palestine Advocacy Network. That's the APAC. The APAC of Australia for Palestinians. And I say the APAC as if, you know, that's who we are. The reality is our budget is about 1/1000%. You know, we've got about 4.5 full-time equivalent staff who advocate on behalf of Palestine. I serve in an honorary capacity and lead a board that are all volunteers as well. My father was ethnically cleansed in 1948, and, you know, luckily, fortuitously, for certainly for me and my children, he found his way to Australia, and it meant that I was born here. And I've got a video pinned on my Instagram where I talk about the number of different apartheid and how it impacts Palestinians differently. And there's 8 types of Palestinian, and I call myself the AAA gold Palestinian, the #1 Palestinian. A lot of it has to do with, you know, the fact that I really enjoy my own work, and whilst you were watching that video, and perhaps your audience was watching that video, so too was I watching that video, even though I was in there and edited the video because I really like my work. So when I say I'm a AAA Palestinian, I mean that from the sense, you know, there's a lot of self-belief and love in myself, but it's because I'm Western assimilated and Western educated. I have a Western passport that can't be taken off me. It also means that my dislocation to Palestine is the greatest. Yeah. So wasn't born there, didn't grow up amongst my culture, didn't grow up amongst my people. And so whilst I have the greatest luxury a Palestinian can have, which is to sound like us. I know I don't sound like us, Joy, but I sound like people here. I still look like people there, but I sound like people here. And so from an assimilation perspective, from a job perspective, from participation perspective, I get to enjoy, a great life as a settler, on colonized land. And then you work your way all the way through those 8 layers, and you get a number 8 Palestinian, which is obviously a Palestinian in Gaza today, who's most connected to the land, who's fighting and dying steadfast and unbroken with their connection to the land, but has no opportunity for egress, has no opportunity for travel and holidays. And I've got a fridge that's full and a house that's warm. We're coming into winter here, and I'm in a t-shirt inside my house. This is a luxury that the overwhelming majority of Palestinians don't enjoy. So that's a little bit about my story. And I believe that AAA Palestinians, and there are many in the States, have a significant responsibility to use that advantage, to advocate for and speak up for those Palestinians that don't have that opportunity.
Absolutely. What has the reception been like in Australia? Have you found that people have been receptive to you? Have they been really like mass organized? I know I've seen some stuff on Twitter, but as an Australian, do you find that people have been acclimated? Are people getting active, or has it gotten more so over the 8 months?
Oh, there's no question, Joy. So I did my first speech 42 years ago when Israel participated in, enabled the massacre of Sabra and Shatila in 1982. I spoke to 5 people, my father, mother, 2 brothers and an uncle. I was related to everybody in the rally. In the past 8 months, or almost 8 months, 241 days, I have traveled the length of this country, and this weekend the width of this country. I'm going to go that way, and I've spoken to hundreds of thousands and millions of people in rallies, in public forums, on the media. We've never had this level of exposure before. The engagement of people who have been able to bypass Murdoch, bypass the mainstream press, Fox, and I'm trying to think of the TV stations up there, MSNBC and all that sort of Zionist propaganda that they spew. They've been able to bypass it with their smart devices. And, as your previous guest was talking about it, this is a live 4K digital genocide. And so there's a significant increase in lay knowledge of what's going on. So on October 8, those bastard Hamas killing people at a dance concert, Israel self-defense is now like, hold on, this is not self-defense. Somebody steals your sandwich, you put your finger in the yogurt in the kitchen, I don't know. But this is not self-defense. You don't wipe out every school, hospital, civil infrastructure, kill 20,000 people. I mean, the death toll's way over 50,000, and it could be 100,000. Like, there's no capacity to count, no hospitals. I mean, they killed 140 reporters. They banned Al Jazeera. They won't let anybody in the camera. I mean, we don't know how bad it is, other than the grainy images that might somehow get out when the internet comes on, that we're able to see. So that level of lay knowledge has increased. But also, as an advocate, I've had a business and worked and everything, when I've never not talked about Palestine. And it was very easy to ignore me, I present a very compelling case, and I'm a very effective advocate, and I'm articulate and passionate, and, I got all the stories down. But when I'm speaking to power, they can just dismiss me because there is no power behind my advocacy. But today, though, streets are closed, sit-ins, petitions, die-ins, mainstream Australia, as is in the States, and all over the world, encampments, just the level of engagement across a huge section of society of activism has meant that you can't ignore the advocate anymore. One of the very first interviews I did was on Sky News, which is our Fox affiliate. And it was 14 minutes long. I couldn't believe they just left me there. And, she just kept going, Hamas. And I went, well, it's not about Hamas. But Hamas, you've got to condemn Hamas. Look, the reality is I sent you 10 press releases from the 1st of January to the 1st of October. We send one out every month. You've never asked me to be on the show.
Yeah.
On the 5th of October, 4 Palestinians were killed. Yesterday, on the 6th of October, the UN said that this is the deadliest year in Palestine for children. On the 6th of October, you don't care about Palestinians. You never cared about us. I mean, absolutely, it's outrageous that civilians were killed. But you cannot selectively say start date was 7th of October and everything was okay on the 6th because some kids decided to have a dance festival. I mean, nobody's ever actually broken that down. Who has a dance festival next door to a concentration camp? I mean, the psychosis there, over and above which nobody's actually challenged the Israelis on the Dahir doctrine that they abide. All those cars that were bombed out were strafed from Apache helicopters. And that killing, let alone what we really need to be focusing on, is the absolute Holocaust. And I've always resisted comparisons between Nazis and Zionism and Nazi words and the Palestinian oppression or Zionist oppression because it's unhelpful. But when the defense minister says we're dealing with human animals, when the prime minister says, invokes, Amalek, an Old Testament story about wiping out, an entire civilization. Well, there can be, and which is why the International Court of Justice has said, these people are chance of committing a plausible genocide, which is why the International Criminal Court wants to issue warrants for these vile, despicable characters. It's now they've made the comparisons absolute.
Sure.
It is a death camp. There is no question. This is not about self-defense. There is no question. This is not about Hamas. They are making Gaza unlivable so that at some point when the bombing stops, there are no schools. Those kids have to be educated somewhere. There are no hospitals. They have to be cared for somewhere. And people are placed somewhere else for a period of time. And whilst my father was ethnically cleansed at the end of a bayonet, anybody that was slow got stabbed and they got pushed out like that. Gaza 23 is a slow burn ethnic cleanse where they've rolled in a grenade and the time on that grenade is 15 years because those kids going to school in Cairo, in Damascus, in Washington, Pennsylvania, wherever they might be going to school for the next decade while Gaza gets rebuilt, who goes back?
Right.
Who goes back? This is a slow burn ethnic cleanse. And I believe a template to what they will do to the West Bank.
Absolutely. Yeah, earlier tonight we showed a video of what they're doing in the West Bank, what they did last night. I mean, at first they said Hamas isn't there, we're not going into West Bank. Then they said, then Biden said we're not, it's a red line in Rafah, and we're seeing these goalposts moved continually. Do you have family in Palestine that you're able to communicate with?
So my family, so they're predominantly what I call level 4 Palestinians. So we're from East Jerusalem in the West Bank. So they were never ethnically cleansed. They were occupied in '67, but we have land. Yeah. So the 1948 Palestinians that ended up in the West Bank as refugees still live in refugee camps, whereas we had land. So we're affluent.
Right.
And the majority of our family have American citizenship as well. That said, it is increasingly becoming hostile beyond imagining, whether it be checkpoints, whether it be curfews, whether it be incursions of rampaging settlers. It is the level of heat in Zionist Israeli police, soldiers, society is at a point where people, are clutching kids, they're moving in small groups and only when necessary, and in a perpetual state of siege and fear. It's no way to live. It's no way to live, and it's abhorrent and despicable that Biden keeps drawing a red line on a whiteboard with a marker that Benjamin Netanyahu just comes and wipes off 2 seconds later. It's just unfathomable. That said, I'm increasingly heartened by how the world is reacting. And with the Prosecutor Khan saying that he's going to be seeking warrants for the arrest of Netanyahu and Gallant, that France said, of course, if he came here, we have respect the ICC, we'd arrest him. Germany, who has given Israel second only to the United States in diplomatic, military, media support, has said we'd arrest him. We respect the ICC. Over the weekend, there is French military fair, where countries sell their weapons of death. They've banned Israel from participating, which is no little thing. Pret a Manager, which is a European coffee chain, like a Starbucks, but better. But I say better because they cancelled their deal to open up stores in Israel overnight.
Good.
The Copa America, the South American Football League, has said that Israel won't be participating this year. So Israel exists the way it exists because of the diplomatic immunity, the diplomatic legitimacy, the military aid that the West gives it. It doesn't exist the way it exists because Gabon said so, or Ecuador said so, or Egypt said so. It exists the way it exists primarily because the United States says you can exist that way as an apartheid, racist, genocidal regime. As a rogue state, when the International Court of Justice says, stop your attack on Rafah, here's an order, within 24 hours, Israel drops a small car, a 2,000-pound bomb, a small car, onto a tent city that displaced people who have been displaced 4 or 5 times. Move south, move south, move south, move to Rafah, move to this bit of Rafah. That Israel has the coordinates of that tent city that people are sitting in and drops a 2,000-pound bomb. We should be clear. I mean, when you drop a bomb on a building, the building absorbs shrapnel and stuff. There's still bits that fly out. When you drop a bomb onto tents, there is nothing stopping the explosion,
right,
other than human bodies.
Right.
And to do so within 24 hours of the International Court saying, stop attacking Rafah, the highest court on earth, the court that the world put into place to ensure that we didn't have another Srebrenica, that we didn't have another Holocaust, that we didn't have another Rwandan genocide, to make sure that we didn't do it. As signatories to the Rome Statute, the United States, our obligations are to ensure Holocaust, that genocides don't occur. That to ignore that order is to say, I'm not going to be held accountable. Nobody can tell me what to do. And that is absolutely the definition of rogue. Israel is a rogue state. It needs to be treated like other rogue states. When the ICC issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin, the West was unanimous. Well done, International Criminal Court. You're doing exactly what you need to do. The same guy assumed that the same burden of proof, etc., was necessary for him to speak in this way, issues it for Benjamin Netanyahu and Noah Gallant, and suddenly the International Criminal Court is an anti-Semite. I mean, it's anti-Semitic. It's just absurd. And this hypocrisy and duplicity is being exposed to the whole world, that Israel is this protected species. Now, the increasing international isolation makes the cost of holding this garrison state, you know, in an empire sense, and for those who've played board games, you know, Risk and stuff, to the cost of holding Israel is going to get more and more expensive. And I imagine, I certainly believe, peak Israel was October 6th. Peak Israel. Today, because of, you know, mobile phone technology and stuff, people, you don't get to put that milk back in the carton. Milk's spilt. Israel's not going to be normal again. You can keep saying we're normal, but nobody's buying that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the most heartening things is we are seeing, you know, other countries coming forward and saying, like you were saying, you know, withdrawing, you know, communications with Israel and doing things with them. And that's very, you know, I don't think they realized just how bad it was going to get for them as far as, you know, the way that we perceive them is accurately so.
Absolutely. You know, Israel enjoyed the fact that it was a normal country, you know.
Right.
Got the visa waiver program to fly into the States. You know, we're like a normal country. Why? You know, we're like everybody else. This is not how normal countries behave. And when I say normal countries, I don't count the States as a normal country, because this is actually how the States behaves. It behaved this way when it went illegally into Iraq and killed 1 million innocent Iraqis. It behaved this way, and George Bush, Blair, and our own Prime Minister, former Prime Minister John Howard, walk the streets free, yet they are as guilty of war crimes as Benjamin Netanyahu does. That this is from the legitimacy Israel enjoyed as a normal country. Again, understand that the United States isn't a normal country because it does bomb people for resources, bombs people for control, is a settler colony and a settler colonial enterprise that deprives its indigenous people of rights, etc. That, but to the lay person, their exposure or connection to or understanding of Israel might be, you know, from Eurovision, from somebody singing. It might be from a Netflix TV show they watched that was produced in Israel. It might be, you know, because you know, a TV show. I watch one of your TV shows, Porn Stars or something, where there's like a pawn shop and people are bringing stuff in, and you know, every second. I mean,
Right.
I like the show. Like I don't know, it's a little bit of my trashness coming out. But the guy, you know, his name's Yossi, and every time it says, you know, Yossi from Israel, and you know, like it's so people's understanding of what is Israel. And the real challenge with that is how it's manifesting itself today, and being weaponized by Zionists into anti-Semitism. For so long, what the Zionist lobby has done, what AIPAC has done, is to conflate Israel with Jews and Judaism, you know, and it's not the truth. You know, so many of our most ardent and strong supporters here in Australia, but also, like I see the vision from the States, you know, are Jewish siblings, you know, our Jewish brothers and sisters who are putting themselves and using their advantage and using their privilege to protect Palestinians. You know, they're at the front line, whether it's at the encampments or closing down streets. Judaism is a noble religion. It's a noble, and it's connected to Palestine. And Palestinians don't deny Jewish connection to the land. Yeah, we just don't accept that it's superior. Don't accept that it's superior.
Right.
And that ultimately is the definition of Zionism. It says that I need a Jewish homeland, and I need it at your expense, Nasser. And not only at your expense, Nasser, I'm going to kick the living hell out of you every 6 months or so as well. So
Right.
that's the problem with Zionism as opposed to Judaism.
Absolutely.
And that conflation now, that conflation that AIPAC and those Zionist lobby Israel First organizations have done, is a layperson who perhaps is watching this for the first time, you know, has never been exposed to anything, is seeing kids getting pulled out of tents with no heads, is seeing kids with no limbs, is seeing, you know, the whole school year cancelled, is seeing just the absolute devastation and horror show that is this genocide, is this Holocaust, and says, F Israel, and in their minds, Israel is Jews, F Jews. And you go, no, look, we've got to help you along here. Israel is not Jews, and Zionism, most Zionists in the world are not Jewish. You know, Joe Biden,
Right.
devout Zionist, yeah. And understanding that Zionism is actually in the hierarchy of white supremacism, of patriarchy, of hate. That you know, that fight against that hierarchy of hate is a fight we all need to be part of, because it, you know, the other side of it is our liberation of all oppressed people. But also, as I said in the video, if you're an oppressor, you're trapped too. There is no freedom if you're standing on my throat. You're stuck here too. Look, you feel better because you're the one doing the standing, but that's not freedom.
Absolutely. You are so right. I wish I could talk to you for so much longer, but I thank you so, so much for joining.
Dig deep, everybody. See the links in there. I won't talk about my charity because you won't get any deductions.
Yes,
no, not about mine. Support the charities on Joy's YouTube. Thank you so much, Joy, and I wish you the very best for the rest of the show.
Thank you so much, NASA. I appreciate it. Your perspective was so needed, and keep doing what you're doing because you're kicking ass.
Solidarity, sister.
Solidarity.
Go to my Instagram. I am the Nas Man. I am the Nas
Yes.
Man. It used to be just for my kids, but now it's like got 30,000 followers or something. All my good content is there.
Yes. Thank you so much.